there, and what role does that play in kind of helping with the operation?
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm doing a recording on January 3rd. Last night, the United States did an operation, hit Venezuela, and captured Maduro. Trump is going to be speaking shortly here. We're going to be recording this. I'll give you my perspective on what's going on and how it may affect the oil markets. Thank you for joining. Please help support the work that I do by subscribing to all the channels that I have. I have YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can also be a paid member to my Substack channel and my Patreon channel. All the content that I provide out there are for free. I provide audio podcasts, video podcasts, news, top news, information about how to improve your health, and also how to navigate the tumultuous markets. Monday, the markets are going to have some movements because of this. So pay attention. It's really important that you watch my show. Now, if you like the content that I do, please share the links after social media to follow me. You can also follow me on X, GETTR. And please help support the work by sharing the links and donating. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. Again, you can be a paid member to my Patreon channel and my Substack channel. But again, I put everything out there for free. If you would like to support the work that I do and help to grow the channel, I greatly appreciate it. Let's start. It looks like they're going to start soon here. Let's just listen into live now so we are ready for Trump's speech.
Is on the left-hand side of your screen, and that is just a few of them. Again, President Trump expected to walk in here in just a matter of moments to address the nation on this Venezuela operation, the capture of Maduro and his wife. We're going to bring you those remarks in full the second that we do get them. And we're looking at all of this, kind of gathering the latest information that is coming into our newsroom. Mark, anything that you think we missed? Anything you want to make sure to add here before I let you go?
Josh, this is a highly fluid situation. You're doing a great job covering it, trying to keep the public informed about how this is evolving. I think you've covered everything really well. I would look for internal dissension inside Venezuela and see if the military cracks, or because I'll tell you one other thing we didn't address, Josh, is they had to have somebody on the inside to help get us this information on Maduro's location. That's part of the human network. If we got that, are we starting to get fissures inside the Venezuelan leadership? That would be good if we could start to crack that and start to open up some sort of fissure in this leadership group that's running Venezuela illegally right now. So I think we can watch for that over the next few days.
And actually, would you be able to go a little bit more in depth on that? Because I hadn't even really thought about that. And that's something that hasn't been mentioned, is that it sounds like there are some insiders there in Venezuela that are helping the U.S. And I would imagine that's got to be pretty standard. We know, for instance, you and I discuss Israel a lot and the situation going on there. There were people, for instance, the pagers that blew up with Hezbollah. There was somebody inside to help make all of that happen. So you have to imagine that there's some people there in Venezuela who want to help out the U.S. with all of this.
Yeah, there are dissatisfied people within
Venezuela. While we're waiting for Trump to begin here, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great structural nano silver soaps that I have. You can get it in charcoal tea tree. You can get it in lemongrass. Also, you can get it in peppermint and lavender. Very high quality soaps will help to improve the health of your skin and help to neutralize. Use these every day to improve your skin. Also, get the vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is an gene expression cofactor. It also helps to build bone density because it helps to absorb calcium. And if you're doing resistance training, you'll be able to build denser bone. And vitamin D3 also helps to get cells to go into apoptosis if they're infected. This is the reason why it's super important to take during the winter season. But you should be taking vitamin D3 every day as part of your health protocol. And get the Max 35. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Cleanse is 30 parts per million. They're at different price points, but they'll help to boost up your immune system. You take a teaspoon a day, every day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow it. This will help to maintain the mucosal barrier, help the health of your epithelial lining, improve your oral cavity health and your oral pharynx health. By doing that, it's going to boost up the immune system. If you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, take a tablespoon or two every day until you go back to your baseline, and then take a teaspoon a day. So you can take this prophylactically. You can take this if you're not feeling well. I've been doing this for more than 5 years. This will help to boost up the immune system and neutralize whatever is contracting. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
Behind, but by 11/11, 11/12, somewhere around there, we should have President Trump. And as I mentioned, we are going to bring this to you in full. That is what we do here on Live Now from Fox, and you can watch it commercial free. We also know that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth will be a part of this news conference as well. What I want to do is pull up this image right here. Now, we do have this statement that came in from the defense minister. This was over in Venezuela, where Mark and I were kind of just discussing this, but he said the Venezuelan people have been victims of the most criminal military aggression by the United States. The barbarity of the invading forces has desecrated our sacred soil, even striking civilian urban areas with missiles and rockets fired from combat helicopters. We are currently gathering information on the injured and dead, so seemingly confirming that some people were injured and dead as a result of the U.S. strikes there on Venezuela. They did say, we fully support the decree declaring a state of external emergency across the entire national territory. And as a result, the men and women of the armed forces are carrying out the instructions of President Nicolas Maduro, deploying all of our capabilities. We will win. Long live the homeland. And of course, likely that we will see President Trump specifically address that as he does take to the podium here in a second. Now, we also heard from Vice President J.D. Vance, who said the president offered multiple off-ramps, but was very clear throughout this process that drug trafficking must stop and the stolen oil must be returned to the United States. Maduro is the newest person to find out that President Trump means what he says. Kudos to our brave special operators who pulled off a truly impressive operation. He went on to say, and PSA for everyone saying this was illegal, Maduro has multiple indictments in the United States for narco-terrorism. You don't get to avoid justice for drug trafficking in the United States because you live in a palace in Caracas. Again, we're monitoring the feeds right here, and we are awaiting those comments from President Donald Trump that should be getting underway here in a matter of moments, and we're going to bring them to you in full. That's what we do here on Live Now from Fox. And as we are just past the top of the hour here, it is right now 11:10 on the East Coast and 8:10 on the West Coast. It is Saturday, January 3rd. My name is Josh Breslow, and we are going to continue to bring you coverage throughout the day as we get much more information on the detainment, so to speak, of Nicolas Maduro, the leader there in Venezuela, as well as his wife, both of whom were detained there by U.S. officials overnight, really just hours ago, as there were large-scale strikes that were conducted by the U.S. And what you're probably seeing is I keep looking down, and I did want to point out that the reason for that is we are keeping an eye on the different feeds coming in, and I'm trying to make sure that the second that we see President Trump walk in, we are able to bring that to you in full. Again, this is a live look at the stage as we learn the latest on all of this. So if you are just joining us, we did learn some information from President Trump as he spoke with Fox News a bit earlier on this morning. President Trump revealing that the U.S. did launch those strikes in Venezuela and captured Nicolas Maduro and his wife. This all happening amid Trump's war on the drug cartels, which has seen strikes on suspected drug-carrying vessels off the coast of Venezuela. Now, President Trump saying that Maduro and his wife, who have both been indicted in the U.S., are en route to New York to face prosecution. The indictment itself, about 25 pages in length, we were looking through it, and essentially it accuses Maduro of leading a, quote, corrupt, illegitimate government that for decades has leveraged government power to protect and promote illegal activity, including drug trafficking. It alleges that the drug trafficking efforts, quote, enriched and entrenched Venezuela's political and military elite. U.S. authorities allege that Maduro partnered with, quote, some of the most violent and prolific drug traffickers and narco terrorists in the world to bring tons of cocaine into the U.S. Again, according to the documents that we were able to get our hands on here. Authorities estimate that as much as 250 tons of cocaine were trafficked through Venezuela by 2020. The drugs were moved on go-fast vessels, fishing boats, and container ships or via planes from clandestine airstrips. Again, we are following all of the details. We did hear from President Trump a bit earlier, who said that Maduro and his wife are en route via U.S. ship over to the U.S., specifically to New York, where they have been indicted. We are also waiting to see if we do get live images of their arrival. There have been some images that are circulating online showing the detainment of Maduro and his wife. We have not been able to independently confirm that those are accurate photos and not artificial intelligence generated. Once we do confirm, though, we will make sure to show you those images here as soon as we get them on Live Now from Fox. We also have a different angle here that shows just how many reporters are out here getting ready to go. This should begin momentarily, as we did get that 5-minute warning just about 6 minutes ago, meaning we can see where President Trump is going to enter into the room, that door that's open right there at Mar-a-Lago. And if you are just joining us, do want to let you know that he has been at Mar-a-Lago for the Christmas and New Year's holiday with his family there celebrating. So he is holding this news conference from Mar-a-Lago, which is where he watched this operation, he says, unfold here. So he's expected to talk about that. We know that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth will also be there to make comments. There are a lot of media members, so you have to imagine that President Trump will likely take some questions from reporters. That is normally what happens in a situation like this. The president is normally very vocal and takes a lot of questions. So we expect that will be the case, as there are so many questions that are left unanswered at this point. We are still awaiting the arrival of President Trump. He's, of course, there at Mar-a-Lago, but should be walking through the door any second now. I just wanted to lift up the audio really briefly to see if we could potentially hear any of the chatter there in the background. And at this point, not really hearing much of anything other than folks just kind of texting on their phones, trying to get all the information out there that they know so far. President Trump speaking with Fox News a bit earlier, as I mentioned.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, while we're waiting for Trump. Get the honey and lemon drops, blueberry, or a cherry flavor. They're made from structural nanosilver. Take them in the winter season. Really important to neutralize and mitigate any throat irritation. If someone around you is not feeling well, take them prophylactically so you can neutralize. These will help to take that irritant and neutralize it and produce a barrier for your oral pharynx. So please take them right away. They're also very good for the allergy season in the spring. So get a few bags for your household, have some at work, have some at home, take them right away. They're very high quality. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get this structural nanosilver drops, very high quality.
You should potentially get some live images of them. Now, it is also important to note that cameras are not allowed inside a federal court, so we likely won't be able to get live images as they do face a judge, so to speak, potentially later on today. All of that kind of still in flux as we wait to get more details on that. But if we get any sort of live images, as you can imagine, you're going to see them right here on Live Now from Fox. heard someone there say in the background they're thinking about 2 minutes, so it
All
looks
right.
as though that's
So there's
maybe-
another 2-minute wait here. All right. I thought that this was going to be a multiple day operation, air operation, Navy operation, and then potentially an extraction operation. Well, it went a lot quicker. It happened all last night, and they captured Maduro. So what does this mean for the energy markets? My original thesis was that it was going to be a multiple day event. It was going to take place, at least one of the multiple day events was going to take place during the trading session, and therefore oil would blip up to $4 a barrel. Well, this was such a clean and quick operation, and the United States it looks like we're in control of the oil now. That means that short term, probably oil is going to go down in the trading session. So we have to pay attention to the Asian and the European trading session on Brent crude, and then how that will trade for WTI in the United States on Monday when trading opens up. I suspect that oil will go down. Now, maybe it'll go down 50 cents a barrel, maybe $1. It was trading at around $56, $57 a barrel on Friday. So we may see a 55, maybe even a 54 handle. But I think that it won't stay down for very long, and then it'll come back up to that 56 range. So this $4 blip that I was expecting is probably not going to happen because this was so quick. This operation was so quick and so clean and effective. So that means that oil is probably going to still trade at that 55 range for a while. So that means that it can go up maybe $2 and then come back down. So that 56 handle could be trading at about maybe 54 to maybe about a 58 maybe range right now. So stay tuned with that. How it affects natural gas, because natural gas trades a little differently, I'm not really sure. We're going to have to talk about that later. Another thing that's really important is another Federal Reserve market operation window was activated on Friday in the tune of about $19 billion. So counterparties, there are banks, there are ones that have access to the Fed window, they're accessing it, and they've been accessing it with some veracity December 31st and January 2nd. All right, we're still waiting on Trump. So with those market operations with the Federal Reserve and the banks coming in or whoever has access to that window, they need liquidity and they need overnight liquidity. And it may have something to do with some sort of counterparty risk in Asia. That's what Miss Taiwan thinks. I'm not so sure about that. I'm a little concerned about what's really going on with the banking industry. Maybe they're worried about the exposure with oil, and that if they're longed oil and oil starts to drop, it's going to affect their balance sheet. That might be something to do with it. But these are big numbers: 19 billion, 74 billion. Yeah. So I'll do a show on it, showing why I think that this is a problem. But exactly the reason for it, I don't know. So a group of banks or ones that have access to the window need liquidity, short-term liquidity. And this is not the normal at the end of the year liquidity adjustment. Something bigger. What it means, I'm not really sure. So usually when there's interbank lending issues and banks have to go for liquidity to the Federal Reserve, that's usually a problem. But because the Federal Reserve has been telegraphing that they're going to be lowering rates, SOFR, which is a interbank lending rate, is the actual rate between banks for overnight lending or some sort of short-term lending is going down. But that's because the Federal Reserve has been telegraphing that the federal funds rate is going to go down. If there was stress in the international lending mechanism, you would think that the interest rates would be going up. So something doesn't make sense. Interbank lending rates are relatively going down in the last 3 months or so. So where's the stress? It's not showing in the data. And then all of a sudden, some individuals or groups or consortiums have to come to the window, the discount window, and ask for billions and billions and billions of dollars. Something doesn't make sense. Something doesn't make sense. And there's a few articles out there. Bloomberg did one, Reuters did another, but there's not really an explanation of why this is happening with such. They just put it underneath the rug and say, oh, this is just at the end of the year adjustments for liquidity. But if you look at prior years, it doesn't even come close to the magnitude that was asked for at the window recently. And to put it into context, COVID was like 60 billion for the market window. Lehman was in tens of billions per day, and it was over multiple months. So the magnitude that was borrowed was only about 10, sometimes 5. Normally, it's really low. So we're talking about magnitude that was borrowed through the discount window that was reminiscent of COVID and Lehman. What's going on here? But yet no stress in SOFR in the interbank lending rate. So it doesn't make sense. So where's Basant? Bissent, I should say, not Bassett. Bissent. Where is he? I don't know. He hasn't been around. He's a Treasury Secretary. Treasury Secretaries, when there's a crisis, behind the scenes, they're working the phones. So what's going on here? Now, it could be that he's just on a holiday, but I doubt it. The magnitude that was borrowed at the Federal Reserve on Friday and on the 31st of December was massive. Massive. All right, let's listen in here.
Trump saying, if this action were constitutionally sound, the attorney general wouldn't be tweeting that they've arrested the president of a sovereign country and his wife for possessing guns in violation of a 1934 U.S. firearm law. Again, Thomas Massie has been very critical of President Trump in the past, and that is a post that is just coming in here as we do wait for President Trump to make those remarks in just a matter of moments. This is running just a little bit behind as he was slated to speak at 11 a.m. Eastern time. It is now 11:25, and we have received several different 2-minute warnings, 5-minute warnings. However, as you can see, the president has not walked in just yet. That's why I'm reading some of these posts here to give you that reaction and updating you on the latest information. And of course, there are people asking Fox right now if there has been any kind of update on the timing. We know that President Trump and Secretary Hegseth are probably talking right now, providing the latest briefing to each other, the latest information with the Trump administration, so they can be kind of up to date on all of this when they do speak to the media in just a matter of moments. And more importantly than the media, speaking to the nation as a whole. And of course, as you can hear there, we're kind of listening into some of the chatter. Folks have received the 2-minute warning, the 5-minute warning. However, this has not started just yet. I'm sure everyone there who's involved wants to make sure that they do have the most up-to-date information before they do provide it to the media. And as I said, more importantly than providing it to the media is providing it to the American people who are watching this in very large numbers. And if you're choosing to watch it with us here on Live Now from Fox, thank you so much for doing that. We're going to continue to cover this all throughout the day and bring you the very latest information as we get it. These comments from President Trump are going to be in full. We're all And of course, we're doing this all kind of on the fly here. So what I want to do is kind of pop this up on your screen in full. Again, the second that we see Trump walk up, you will not miss any of that here. But this is actually a post coming in from Truth Social. Big thank you to Ryan, a producer here at Live Now from Fox. And you can see that photo. Looks like Nicolas Maduro's eyes are covered here. He has a bottle of water in his hand. And it says Nicolas Maduro on board the USS warship there that is bringing him over to New York. We know that's where he's indicted, so we definitely wanted to bring this post to you here on Live Now from Fox. A big thank you to our producer Ryan, who was able to find that and pull it in. But again, that is the first of the images that we have seen of Maduro in custody just coming in as he and his wife are traveling right now by boat over to New York, where they face that indictment. We have not received an update just yet on the timing of when all of this should be getting underway, but we're keeping an eye on that. And of course, we did get the alert, as I mentioned, around 11 a.m. from the White House, which normally indicates that they are about to start any moment now. However, as you can see, if you're watching us here, it has not started just yet. A live look there at the podium once again with the presidential seal as we await this beginning anytime soon here. The second it does begin, I promise you will not miss any of this here on Live Now from Fox as soon as President Trump does start speaking in just a matter of moments. And it does look like President Trump did release that image that I told you about of Maduro and showed you, but also video of the strikes themselves that he posted moments ago on Truth Social. We've seen a lot of the different videos, kind of short clips that have come in, but he did also release video that shows the explosions here. I'm going to work to pull that up for you here on your screen as well as we do await the comments from President Trump and Secretary Hegseth.
They keep on just. Let's listen into some of the news while we're waiting.
Some cookies sweetened now. Well, the wrong one. Slow down, you're mad.
I wonder, Mr. President, I want to ask you because from your Vice President, J.D. Vance, said that the message is pretty clear that drug trafficking must stop. So was this operation a message that you're sending to Mexico, to Claudia Sheinbaum, the president there?
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something because we lost, the real number is 300,000 people, in my opinion. You know, I like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada too, by the way, in case you don't know. But they come in through the southern border, and something's going to have to be done with Mexico.
Why did you decide to do this morning?
Are you talking about calling you people or this guy?
No, taking out.
I'm not sure which is worse, if you want to know. I'm calling you. I haven't spoken to anybody else because Charlie Hurd has been a great friend of mine for a long time. He was with me when it was not fashionable. And those are the people I like. He was with me, Charlie, when it was not at all fashionable. So that's the reason I'm doing this. And your show is great. You're doing a great job. What a good team.
Why did you make the decision to take out Maduro this morning? And what was Maduro doing when our guys came in on him?
So we were going to do this 4 days ago, but the weather was not perfect. The weather has to be perfect. And we had just the perfect weather. We had, very good. A little bit few more clouds than we thought, but it was good. We waited 4 days. We were going to do this 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago. And then all of a sudden it opened up and we said go. And I'll tell you, it was just amazing. And what was he doing? He was in a very highly guarded, like a fortress, actually. He was in a fortress. That we had nobody killed was amazing. I think we had nobody killed, I have to say, because a couple of guys were hit, but they came back and they're supposed to be in pretty good shape. But that we had nobody killed, that we lost no aircraft, everything came back. We got it all back. One of them was hit pretty hard, but a helicopter, but we got it back. But it just was the right time to do it. We had to do it because it's a war. We're losing 300,000 people a year. We don't lose that much in a war, okay, if you look. And we had to do it. But he was in a house that was more like a fortress than a house. It had steel doors. It had what they call a safety space where it's, solid steel all around. He didn't get that space closed. He was trying to get into it, but he got bum rushed so fast that he didn't get into that. We were prepared. We had, massive blow torches and everything else that you need to get through that steel, but we didn't need it. He didn't make it to that area of the house.
Mr. President, your war on narco-terrorism from our southern border and beyond clearly will save American lives. Moving forward for Venezuela, what do you think is next for the Venezuelan people now that you have removed Maduro so that he can face American justice?
Well, we're making that decision now. We can't take a chance on letting somebody else run and just take over where he left off. So we're making that decision now. We'll be involved in it very much. And we want to do liberty for the people. We want to, have a great relationship. I think the people of Venezuela are very, very happy because they love the United States. They were run by essentially a dictatorship or worse. It couldn't have been worse. It was a terrible thing that was taking place in Venezuela. But look, tremendous numbers of people were being killed through drugs. And what they did to our country in sending prisoners and people from mental institutions and drug lords and everything, they sent it by the hundreds of thousands of people into our country. And that is just unforgivable. That's why, he wanted to negotiate at the end, and I didn't want to negotiate. I said, no, we got to do it. He was trying to negotiate at the end. You probably saw that. And trying hard to make a deal. And I said, this could have been a very foolish thing if it didn't work out. But I said, no, we can't do it. What he did with drugs is bad. What he did with a lot of other things is bad. But what he did was sending hundreds of thousands of Tren de Aragua and drug dealers. And they emptied out their jails into our country. They emptied out, if you think about it, they emptied out all of their mental institutions into our country. What he did there, and every other thing, is unforgivable.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern.
That is what we do.
Come on, when is he going to show up?
President Trump telling Fox News a bit earlier on today that he actually spoke to Maduro several times, including most recently about a week ago. Maduro denied that in an interview on New Year's Eve, saying he had only spoken to Trump in November, but President Trump did say that he spoke with Maduro about a week ago, and Maduro said he was not going to surrender. So the next step, of course, was to go in and seize Maduro and his wife, taking them into custody and bringing them back to the U.S.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. Zeolite will help to detoxify your body, help to get rid of heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. You take 3 small drops underneath your tongue and drink filtered water. Do that every day. And what that will do is allow you to urinate those toxins and chemicals out within 6 to 8 hours. And when you are detoxifying your body, you're improving your immune system and your endocrine system. You're improving your brain function because you have less toxins in your neurons and around the neurons. It's really important to detoxify your body. This is very powerful. Take 3 small drops each day, drink filtered water, detoxify your body. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite.
Military personnel who were injured in the attack. We see President Trump. Let's lift up the audio.
Okay, thank you very much. This is big stuff. We appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, there's some other good ones like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer, all perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, maybe like never before. These highly trained warriors operating in collaboration with US law enforcement, caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea, just sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in a ready, what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far, with capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have. And you see that even if you just look at the boats, you know, we've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills 25, on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela. And that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now. And what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it essentially until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to do a second wave if we needed to do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not. The first wave, if you'd like to call it that, the first attack was so successful, we probably don't have to do a second, but we're prepared to do a second wave, a much bigger wave, actually. This was pinpoint, but we have a much bigger wave that probably won't have to do. This partnership of Venezuela with the United States of America, a country that everybody wants to be involved with because of what we were able to do and accomplish, will make the people of Venezuela rich, independent, and safe. And it will also make the many, many people from Venezuela that are living in the United States extremely happy. They suffered. They suffered. So much was taken from them. They're not going to suffer anymore. The illegitimate dictator Maduro was the kingpin of a vast criminal network responsible for trafficking colossal amounts of deadly and illicit drugs into the United States. As alleged in the indictment, he personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de las Solas, which flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for the deaths of countless Americans, many, many Americans, hundreds of thousands over the years of Americans died because of him. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil. Right now, they're on a ship they'll be heading to ultimately New York. And then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida. But we have people where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. And you all saw it. In addition to trafficking gigantic amounts of illegal drugs that inflicted untold suffering and human destruction all over the country, all over in particular the United States, Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty prison gang, Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide. And he did indeed. They were in Colorado. They took over apartment complexes. They cut the fingers off people if they called police. They were brutal. But they're not so brutal now. And I just have to congratulate our military, Pete, and everybody, and our National Guard, because the job that they've done, whether it's in Washington, D.C., where we have a totally safe city, where it was one of the most unsafe cities anywhere in the world, frankly, and now we have no crime in Washington, D.C. We haven't had a killing. We had the terrorist attack a few weeks ago. A little bit of a different kind of a threat, but we haven't had a killing in a long period of time, 6-7 months. We used to have two, on average, 2 a week in Washington, our capital. We don't have that anymore. The restaurants are opening. Everyone's happy. They go in, they walk in their daughters, they walk in their children, their wives, they walk to restaurants. Restaurants are opening all over Washington, D.C. So I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank our military, and I want to thank law enforcement. Been amazing. And they should do it with more cities. We're doing it, as you know, and we're doing it in Memphis, Tennessee right now, and crime is down. We just sort of started a few weeks ago, but crime is down now 77%. And the governor of Louisiana called, great person, and he wanted us to help him, as you know, in a certain very nice part of Louisiana. And we have done that. And it was a rough section, and we have crime down. I understand it's down to almost nothing already after 2.5 weeks. New Orleans, it's down to almost nothing. And we've only been there for 2.5 weeks. Can't imagine why governors wouldn't want us to help. We also helped, as you know, in Chicago, and crime went down a little bit there. We did a very small help because we had no working ability with the governor. The governor was a disaster and the mayor was a disaster, but it knocked down crime. But we're pulling out of there when they need us. We'll know. You'll know. You'll be writing about it. And likewise, Los Angeles, where we saved Los Angeles early on, where the head of the police department made a statement that if the federal government didn't come in, we would have lost Los Angeles. That's long after the fires. That's when they had the riots in Los Angeles. We did a great job. Got no credit for it whatsoever, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We don't need the credit. But we'll be pulling out when they need us. They'll call, or we'll go back if we have to. We'll go back. But we did a great job in various cities. But the place that we're very proud of is Washington, D.C., because it's our nation's capital. We took it from being a crime-ridden mess to being one of the safest cities in the country. But the gangs that they sent raped, tortured, and murdered American women and children. They were in all of the cities I mentioned, Aragua, and they were sent by Maduro to terrorize our people. And now Maduro will never again be able to threaten an American citizen or anybody from Venezuela. There will no longer be threats. For years, I've highlighted the stories of those innocent Americans whose lives were so heartlessly robbed by this Venezuelan terrorist organization. Really one of the worst. One of the worst, they say the worst. Americans like 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungari from Houston. Beautiful Jocelyn Nungari, what happened to her? They, as you know, they kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered by Aragua animals. They murdered Jocelyn and left her dead under the bridge. There was a bridge that will never be the same to so many people after seeing what happened. As I've said many times, the Maduro regime emptied out their prisons, sent their worst and most violent monsters into the United States to steal American lives. And they came from mental institutions and insane asylums. They came from prisons and jails. The reason I say both, they sound similar. Actually, prisons, a little bit more hostile, a little bit tougher. A mental institution isn't as tough as an insane asylum, but we got them both. They sent from their mental institutions. They sent from their jails, prisons. They were drug dealers. They were drug kingpins. They sent everybody bad into the United States, but no longer. And we have now a border where nobody gets through. In addition, Venezuela unilaterally seized and stole American oil, American assets, and American platforms, costing us billions and billions of dollars. They did this a while ago, but we never had a president that did anything about it. They took all of our property. It was our property. We built it. And we never had a president that decided to do anything about it. Instead, they fought wars that were 10,000 miles away. We built Venezuela oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill, and the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and they stole it through force. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country. Considered the largest theft of property in the history of our country. Massive oil infrastructure was taken like we were babies, and we didn't do anything about it. I would have done something about it. America will never allow foreign powers to rob our people and drive us back into and out of our own hemisphere. That's what they did. Furthermore, under the now deposed dictator Maduro, Venezuela was increasingly hosting foreign adversaries in our region and acquiring menacing offensive weapons that could threaten U.S. interests and lives. And they used those weapons last night. Potentially in league with the cartels operating along our border. All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries. And not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines. And the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Monroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen. So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting American power in a very powerful way in our home region. And our home region is very different than it was just a short while ago. The future will be, and we did this in my first term. We had great dominance in my first term, and we have far greater dominance right now. Everyone's coming back to us. The future will be determined by the ability to protect commerce and territory and resources that are core to national security. These are core to our national security. Just like tariffs they've made our country rich, and they've made our national security stronger than ever before. But these are the iron laws that have always determined global power. And we're going to keep it that way. We will secure our borders. We will stop the terrorists. We will crash the cartels, and we will defend our citizens against all threats, foreign and domestic. Other presidents may have lacked the courage or whatever to defend America, but I will never allow terrorists and criminals to operate with impunity against the United States. This extremely successful operation should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives. Very importantly, the embargo on all Venezuelan oil remains in full effect. The American Armada remains poised in position, and the United States retains all military options until the United States demands have been fully met and fully satisfied. All political and military figures in Venezuela should understand what happened to Maduro can happen to them, and it will happen to them if they aren't just fair, even to their people. The dictator and terrorist, Maduro, is finally gone in Venezuela. People are free. They're free again. It's been a long time for them, but they're free. America is a safer nation. This morning, it's a prouder nation this morning because it didn't allow this horrible person and this country that was doing very bad things to us. It didn't allow it to happen. And the Western Hemisphere is right now a much safer place to be. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank General Raisin Kane. He's fantastic man. I've worked with a lot of generals. I worked with some I didn't like. I worked with some I didn't respect. I worked with some that just weren't good. But this guy is fantastic. I watched last night one of the most precise attacks on sovereignty. I mean, it was an attack for justice. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who I'm going to ask to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Can you explain how the U.S. will run Venezuela?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Finally, a commander-in-chief the world respects and the American people deserve. And as the president said, words can barely capture the bravery and the power and the precision of this historic operation. A massive joint military and law enforcement raid flawlessly executed by the greatest Americans our country has to offer. American warriors are second to none, the best in the world and the best of our country. What all of us witnessed last night was sheer guts and grit, gallantry, and glory of the American warrior. I'm simply humbled by such men. And I tip my hat to our chairman, Dan Raisin Kane, and all those Americans who stood watch last night. Our warriors are the elite of America, and again, President Trump has your back. No other country on planet Earth, and it's not even close, could pull this kind of operation off. And no other president has ever shown this kind of leadership, courage, and resolve. The most powerful combination the world has ever seen. As the president said, our adversaries remain on notice. America can project our will anywhere, anytime. The coordination, the stealth, the lethality, the precision, the very long arm of American justice, all on full display in the middle of the night. Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people. Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us. And deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere. This is about the safety, security, freedom, and prosperity of the American people. This is America first. This is peace through strength. And the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it. Welcome to 2026. And under President Trump, America is back. I'd like to welcome now our chairman, Chairman Raising Cane, to give a few more details about the operation. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. Last night, on the order of the President of the United States and in support of a request from the Department of Justice, as the President said, the United States military conducted an apprehension mission in Caracas, Venezuela, to bring to justice two indicted persons, Nicolas and Cecilia Maduro. This operation, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, was discreet, precise, and conducted during the darkest hours of January 2nd and was the culmination of months of planning and rehearsal, an operation that, frankly, only the United States military could undertake. What I'd like to do this morning is talk to you through some of the preparation and the details without compromising any of our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There is always a chance that we'll be tasked to do this type of mission again. Our interagency work began months ago and built on decades of experience of integrating complex air, ground, space, and maritime operations. While the past 2 decades have honed the skills of our special operations forces, this particular mission required every component of our joint force, with soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians working in unison with our intelligence agency partners and law enforcement teammates in an unprecedented operation. We leveraged our unmatched intelligence capabilities and our years of experience in hunting terrorists. And we could not have done this mission without the incredible work by various intelligence agencies, including the CIA, NSA, and NGA. We watched, we waited, we prepared, we remained patient and professional. This mission was meticulously planned, drawing lessons from decades of missions over the last many years, many missions over these last many years. This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. It required the utmost of precision and integration within our joint force. And the word integration does not explain the sheer complexity of such a mission. An extraction so precise, it involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere in close coordination, all coming together in time and place to layer effects for a single purpose, to get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas while maintaining the element of tactical surprise. Failure of one component of this well-oiled machine would have endangered the entire mission, and failure is never an option for America's joint force. Those in the air over Caracas last night were willing to give their lives for those on the ground and in the helicopters. Let me talk a little bit about the preparation. After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets. In early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events. Key was choosing the right day to minimize the potential for civilian harm and maximize the element of surprise and minimize the harm to the indicted personnel, so as the president said, they could be brought to justice. And as the president said earlier today, weather in Venezuela is always a factor this time of the year. And over the weeks through Christmas and New Year's, the men and women of the United States military sat ready, patiently waiting for the right triggers to be met and the president to order us into action. Last night, the weather broke just enough, clearing a path that only the most skilled aviators in the world could maneuver through. Ocean, mountain, low cloud ceilings. But when tasked with a mission, this organization does not quit. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern time last night, the president ordered the United States military to move forward with this mission. He said to us, and we appreciate it, Mr. President, good luck and Godspeed. And those words were transmitted to the entire joint force. Over the course of the night, aircraft began launching from 20 different bases on land and sea across the Western Hemisphere. In total, more than 150 aircraft, bombers, fighters, intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, rotary wing were in the air last night. Thousands and thousands of hours of experience were airborne. Our youngest crew member was 20, and our oldest crew member was 49. And there's simply no match for American military might. As the night began, the helicopters took off with the extraction force, which included law enforcement officers, and began their flight into Venezuela at 100 feet above the water. As they approached Venezuelan shores, the United States began layering different effects provided by Spacecom, Cybercom, and other members of the interagency to create a pathway. Overhead, those forces were protected by aircraft from the United States Marines, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, and the Air National Guard. The force included F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, EA-18s, E-2s, B-1 bombers, and other support aircraft, as well as numerous remotely piloted drones. As the force began to approach Caracas, the Joint Air Component began dismantling and disabling the air defense systems in Venezuela, employing weapons to ensure the safe passage of the helicopters into the target area. The goal of our air component was, and always will be to protect the helicopters and the ground force and get them to the target and get them home. As the force crossed the last point of high terrain where they'd been hiding in the clutter, we assessed that we had maintained totally the element of surprise. As the helicopter force ingressed towards the objective at low level, we arrived at Maduro's compound at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time, and the apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline towards their objective, and isolated the area to ensure the safety and security of the ground force while apprehending the indicted persons. On arrival into the target area, the helicopters came under fire, and they replied with that fire with overwhelming force and self-defense. One of our aircraft was hit, but remained flyable, and as the president said earlier today, all of our aircraft came home, and that aircraft remained flyable during the rest of the mission. As the operation unfolded at the compound, our air and ground intelligence teams provided real-time updates to the ground force, ensuring those forces could safely navigate the complex environment without unnecessary risk. The force remained protected by overhead tactical aviation. Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up and were taken into custody by the Department of Justice, assisted by our incredible U.S. military with professionalism and precision, with no loss of U.S. life. After securing the indicted persons, the force began to prep for departure. Helicopters were called in to exfiltrate the extraction force, while fighter aircraft and remotely piloted aircraft provided overhead coverage and suppressive fire. There were multiple self-defense engagements as the force began to withdraw out of Venezuela. The force successfully exfiltrated and returned to their afloat launch bases, and the force was over the water at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with indicted persons on board. And both Maduro and his wife were embarked aboard the USS Iwo Jima. In closing, what we've witnessed today is a powerful demonstration of America's joint force. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we debrief, we rehearse again and again, not to get it right, but to ensure that we cannot get it wrong. Our jobs are to integrate combat power so when the order comes, we can deliver overwhelming force at the time and the place of our choosing against any foe anywhere in the world. I am immensely proud today of our joint force and filled with gratitude to represent them here today. There is simply no mission too difficult for these incredible professionals and the families that stand by them and support them. As we stand here this morning, our forces remain in the region at a high state of readiness, prepared to project power, defend themselves, and our interests in the region. This operation is a testament to the dedication and unwavering commitment to justice and our resolve to hold accountable those who threaten peace and stability. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who executed this mission. Their courage and tireless commitment to our nation are what makes us strong. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I don't have much to add to what you've heard now, other than the following points. Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 in the United States. He is not the legitimate president of Venezuela. That's not just us saying it. The first Trump administration, the Biden administration, the second Trump administration, none of those three recognize him. He's not recognized by the European Union and multiple countries around the world. He is a fugitive of American justice with a $50 million reward, which I guess we saved $50 million. And
Sure.
yeah, exactly. But
Don't let anybody claim it. Nobody deserves it but us.
But I want to be clear about one thing. Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And the result is what we saw tonight. The other message here is the following. You have a guy, like many people around the world, they like to play games. You have a guy who decides he's going to, do the confiscation of American oil companies, is going to flood our country with gang members, is going to take Americans prisoner and try to hold them for hostage and trade them like he was able to do with the Biden administration. Basically likes to play games all this time and thinks nothing's going to happen. And I hope what people now understand is that we have a president. The 47th president of the United States is not a game player. When he tells you that he's going to do something, when he's going to tell you he's going to address a problem, he means it. He actions it. I can tell you, I've watched this process now for 14, 15 years, been around it. Everybody talks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When I get there, we're going to do this. We're going to take. This is a president of action. Like, I don't understand yet how they haven't figured this out. And now, if you don't know, now you know. Because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, if he says he's serious about something, he means it. And this is something that was a direct threat to the national interest of the United States. And the president addressed it. This is a president of peace, by the way. I told you what I just said earlier. This guy had multiple opportunities to find his way somewhere else and figure out another. He could have been living somewhere else right now, very happy. But instead, he wanted to play big boy. And so now, he's got other sets of problems on his hands. And but I think that the message here should be for the world. But the president doesn't go out looking for people to pick fights with. He's not. Generally wants to get along with everybody. We'll talk and meet with anybody. But don't play games. Don't play games with this president's in office, because it's not going to turn out well. And so I hope that, I guess that lesson was learned last night, and we hope it'll be instructive moving forward.
Mr. President.
Going to run Venezuela. So who's in power right now?
Well, we're going to be running it with a group, and we're going to make sure it's run properly. We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but that's going to be paid. And we're going to get the oil flowing the way it should be. As you know, it was just a minor flow. It was actually a minor flow for what they had. But we're going to run it properly, and we're going to make sure the people of Venezuela are taken care of. We're going to make sure the people that were forced out of Venezuela by this thug are also taken care of.
Does the U.S. running the country mean that U.S. troops will be on the ground? How will that work?
Well, they always say boots on the ground. So we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it. But we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain. This is not This is a very dangerous attack. This is an attack that could have gone very, very badly. Could have gone very badly. We could have lost a lot of people last night. We could have lost a lot of dignity. We could have lost a lot of equipment. The equipment is less important, but we could have lost a lot. And we're going to make sure that this is proper. We're there now. We're ready to go again if we have to. We're going to run the country right. It's going to be run very judiciously, very fairly. It's going to make a lot of money. We're going to give money to the people. We're going to reimburse people that were taken advantage of. We're going to take care of everybody. It's very important. We couldn't let them get away with it. You know, they stole our oil. We built that whole industry there, and they just took it over like we were nothing. And we had a president that decided not to do anything about it. So we did something about it. We're late, but we did something about it. Yeah, please.
Why are you explaining the exact mechanism by which you're going to run the country? Are you going to designate a U.S. people to coordinate?
It's all being done right now. We're designating people. We're talking to people. We're designating various people, and we're going to let you know who those people are.
That would run Venezuela.
Well, it's largely going to be for a period of time, and the people that are standing right behind me. We're going to be running it. We're going to be bringing it back. It's a dead. You're not talking about a dead country. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're a country doing better than any country anywhere in the world, and it required leadership. And Venezuela has a lot of bad people in there. A lot of bad people that shouldn't be leading. We're not going to take a chance that one of those people take over for Maduro. So you can look at, and others, we have fantastic people, including people in the military. So we're going to have a group of people running it until such time as it can be put back on track, make a lot of money for the people, and give people a great way of life, and also reimbursement for people in our country that were forced out of Venezuela.
You said earlier today that you weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela? Or how do you foresee the relationship
Well, I
going?
understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. He's just had a conversation with her. And she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
Mr. President, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, he said he's got to watch his ass. And today, he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So, just what the message is?
Well, he has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
Did he notify any members of Congress in advance?
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved in there.
We called members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Plus, if I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, we had a lot of ships out there. They sort of knew we were coming. But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
You were one of the only people who watched this all play out live. What was Maduro doing when the U.S. forces entered what I assume would be his home? And also, was there any point where the U.S. was considering if Maduro pushed back or resisted killing Maduro?
It could have happened. It could have happened. He was trying to get into a safe place. The safe place is all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast. They went through the opposition so fast. And there was a lot of opposition. People were wondering, do we get it by surprise? Sort of surprised, but they were waiting for something. It was a lot of opposition. There was a lot of gunfire. You saw some of it today. But he was trying to get to a safe place, which wasn't safe because we would have had the door blown up. And about 47, I think 47 seconds, they say on average, regardless of how thick the steel was. It was a very thick door. It was a very heavy door, but he was unable to get to that door. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it.
Where is Maduro going to be in the time being right now? Do you know his exact?
Well, eventually, ultimately, in the near future, he's going to be brought to New York.
And where is he going to be held? Where is he going to be held in New York?
It's going to be up to the officials that do these things.
Mr. President, the U.S. has something of a mixed track record of ousting dictators without necessarily a plan for what comes afterwards.
Well,
Did that weigh on your decision?
Well, that's when we had different presidents, but with me, that's not true. With me, we've had a perfect track record of winning. We win a lot, and we win. If you look at Soleimani, you look at al-Baghdadi, you look at the Midnight Hammer. Midnight Hammer was incredible. Right now, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. We have essentially peace in the Middle East because of that. If we weren't successful with Midnight Hammer, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. So with me, you've had a lot of victory. You've had only victories. You've had no losses yet.
Can you, how long do you expect the U.S. to run Venezuela, and how soon do you want Venezuelan people to hold election?
So I'd like to do it quickly, but it takes a period of time. We're rebuilding. We have to rebuild their whole infrastructure. The infrastructure is rotted. It's actually very dangerous. It's blow up territory. Oil is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to take out of the ground. It can kill a lot of people. It has killed a lot of people doing just that. The infrastructure is old. It's rotted. Much of it is stuff that we put there 25 years ago, and we're going to be replacing it. And we're going to take a lot of money out so that we can take care of the country.
Mr. President, China, Russia, and Iran have interests in Venezuela. How does this operation affect your relationships with them?
Well, China and Russia. Well, Russia when we get things straightened out. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to get it. In other words, we'll be selling oil, probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now, but I would say many more will come.
Mr. President, are you saying that? Oh.
Mr. President, thank you. What is your message to the people of Venezuela today? Of course, the civilian population specifically, they have a lot of questions. What is your message to the people of Venezuela?
You're going to have peace, justice. You're going to have some of the riches that you should have had for a long period of time was stolen from you. But you're going to have peace and you're going to have safety. You're going to have justice. You're going to have a country. You're going to have a real country. You're going to have potentially a great country. If you go back 20 years, maybe even a little longer ago, that was a great country. And they destroyed it. Remember I said that if we lose this election, the United States will be Venezuela on steroids. That's what would have happened. Had we lost the election, the 2024 election, we suffered so badly. When you look at the border from 2020, what they did, what Joe Biden administration did to our country should never be forgotten. But if we had to go through another year of that, we wouldn't have. We would be exactly where Venezuela was in terms of, I used to say, if they win, we're going to be Venezuela on steroids. And that's what would happen.
President, thank you. Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela? And will you be sending in U.S. military troops to provide?
That's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro. And right now she's the vice president and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice. We're going to have this done right. We're not going to just do this with Maduro, then leave like everybody else, leave and say, let it go to hell. If we just left, it has zero chance of ever coming back. We'll run it properly. We'll run it professionally. We'll have the greatest oil companies in the world going and invest billions and billions of dollars and take out money, use that money in Venezuela. And the biggest beneficiary are going to be the people of Venezuela. And also, I can't stress this strongly enough, the people that got thrown out of Venezuela, that are now in the United States, and frankly, some want to stay and some probably want to go back, yeah.
To protect Americans in the country, and were any of the detained Americans?
They're very protected because nobody's gonna mess with us. They're very protected. The people of, and we let them know that, you better not touch one of them.
Why are you concerned that bad elements of the Maduro regime will remain in place?
Well, we know who they are. We're on them, and they're acting much differently now than they would have acted 2 days ago. Okay, wait, behind you, please.
Mr. President, why is running a country in South America America first?
Well, I think it is because we want to surround ourselves with good neighbors. We want to surround ourselves with stability. And we want to surround ourselves with energy. We have tremendous energy in that country. It's very important that we protect it. We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world. And we want to make sure we can protect it. Yes, sir. Yes. Go ahead.
Is your message for Cuba and Venezuela?
Well, Cuba's an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about, when the president speaks, you should take him seriously. So suffice it to say, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men, and in some cases, not senile, but incompetent nonetheless. It has no economy. It's in total collapse. And by the way, they were, all of the guards that helped protect Maduro, this is well known, their whole spy agency, all that were full of Cubans. I mean, it's amazing. This poor island took over Venezuela in some cases. One of the biggest problems the Venezuelans have is they have to declare independence from Cuba. They tried to basically colonize it from a security standpoint. So, yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned, at least a little bit. Well, the president already announced a week ago that anything that's sanctioned oil, it's not going to be allowed to get there. So that's an pre-existing.
The answer is yes. Yes.
Aware of the location of opposition leader Machado, and have you been in contact with her?
No, we haven't.
On Monday.
I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect.
It's possible that the U.S. ends up administrating Venezuela for years.
Well, it won't cost us anything because the money coming out of the ground is very substantial. So it's not going to cost us anything. We will. Well, we want safety there. We want to be surrounded by countries that aren't housing all of our enemies all over the world. That's what was happening, and you don't want to have that. But we're going to be rebuilding, and we're not spending money. The oil companies are going to go in. They're going to spend money. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago. A lot of money is coming out of the ground. We're going to get reimbursed for all of that. We're going to get reimbursed for everything that we spend. So it's going to be a very important. This is a very big evening that took place last night. We have to be surrounded by safe, secure countries. And we also have to have energy, very important. We have to have energy that's real energy, not where they're getting 4% and 5% of the energy out of the ground. You take a look, it was such a disaster. So what's going to happen with Venezuela, I think, over the next period of a year is going to be a great thing. And the people of Venezuela will be the biggest beneficiaries.
Military.
President, thank you. What did you last speak to Maduro about when you spoke? And is the
Well, I don't want to get into the conversations, but I did have conversations with him, and I said, you got to surrender. And I actually thought he was pretty close to doing so, but now he wished he did, yeah.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was convicted of many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations?
Well, I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
You referenced boots on the ground earlier. Can you just sort of button this up? Do you envision the U.S. military having a presence in Venezuela as the U.S. runs that?
Well, no, we're going to have a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil, because we have to have, we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground. And that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country. So I want to thank you all very much. Thank you. Do you have one? Yes, please. You were so nice before. I'm going to give you the final question. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mr.
Unless it's a bad question, in
It's
which
about
case I
Putin.
go one word. It's about
It's about Putin, if you want.
About Putin. Well, that's always nice to talk about Putin.
You had a phone call with him on Monday. Did he talk at all about Maduro? Did y'all talk about this?
No, we didn't.
And
We never spoke about Maduro.
Are you mad at him right now? I mean, there's this
I'm not
intelligence.
thrilled with Putin. I'm not thrilled with Putin. He's killing too many people. I thought that would be so. I settled 8 1/4 war. You know what the 1/4 was? Thailand and Cambodia. I did it again. They broke out, and I did it in about 5 hours, and I settled it. I'm giving myself 1/4, so I'm up to now 8 1/4. In other words, I settled the war, but then they broke out. They had a pretty bad breakout over the last 4 days. I got them to go back to peace. So I only give 1/4. I thought the easiest one would be, one of the easier ones would be Russia, Ukraine. It's not. And they both have done some pretty bad things. And look, that's Biden's war. That's not my war. But I want to stop the lives. Did you see where last month, 30,000, it was 27,000 the month before. 30,000, mostly soldiers, were killed this last month. 30,000. I want to stop that. You know, I got NATO to pay 5% instead of the 2% that they weren't paying. They weren't paying 2, now they pay 5. And we send them a lot of munitions, we send them a lot of things, missiles and various other things, a lot. And they pay. The United States is not losing money. We're probably making money on that. It's the last thing I care about. I just want to stop all those people. We're losing 25, 30,000 human beings that come from 2 places that are very far away. But if I can stop, because it's something I've been pretty good at doing, deals, I guess. It's all a deal. Life is a big deal. But if I can stop that war and stop 30,000 young people, in addition to the fact that people are being killed in Kiev, people are being killed in other cities, you know, a much smaller number, but they're being killed, viciously killed. So I'm not happy about it. I thought that would be something that would get solved. We have Mr. Woodcock here. I think that we're making progress, but that's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, it would have never happened. Putin says it. Everybody says it. If I were president, that would have never happened. But I inherited that war. That was Joe Biden, Zelensky, and Putin. I came into the situation, and it's a mess. And I will say this. I watched an operation last night that was so precise. It was so brilliant. I mean, it was incredible. If we had our people, like this general and our people involved, that war would not have gone on very long, that I can tell you. Or to use an old term, that war has become a bloodbath, and we wanted to get stopped. Thank you very much.
I'll give you my take on the market aspects to this, but I'd like to plug some products here before we continue. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And get the deodorants. These are dual purpose. You can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and also in citrus. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas, has no aluminum, no baking soda. It's all natural ingredients. Use it as a daily deodorant for males or for females, and it'll help to detoxify your body. When you do this every day, you're helping your immune system and your endocrine system. Taking a multivitamin and probiotic is a great way to start slowing down the aging process and get healthy. My multivitamin is easy to digest, and it has the multivitamins that you need for proper enzymatic activity so your cells perform properly. Also, the probiotics that I have, either in the veggie cap or in the powdered form. The one I have in my hand is the powdered form. But you take it every day and it'll bring down inflammation at the gut, allow you to absorb your nutrients properly. Your metabolism will improve, your immune system at the gut level will improve, and your brain function will improve. By having a good gut biome, you will be able to sleep better, you will be able to consolidate memory, you'll be able to detoxify your central nervous system, and your skin will improve with a good gut biome. So please go to my store, get the multivitamin and the probiotic. Magnesium and zinc will boost up your immune system and help with brain function. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your skin, boost up your immune system, and help with your brain function. Take them together and slow down the aging process, especially during the winter season. You need to boost up your immune system. So you get a lot of benefit by taking the magnesium and zinc and the vitamin C and magnesium. Take them together for max benefit. By taking magnesium, you're increasing the efficacy of vitamin D3. And also, one of the pillars to my anti-aging protocol is to take ashwagandha, turmeric, and lignans together as a stack. You can take them separately, but you get the max benefit when you stack them together. Now, the reason why it works is that you're bringing down inflammation, you're soaking up free radicals. So the whole idea is that you want to boost up your immune system, but you'll get other benefits from this: brain function and healthier cardiovascular system. Ashwagandha brings down cortisol levels and helps to, by bringing down cortisol levels, you're going to be boosting up that immune system. A lot of people don't realize that when you're overly stressed, you have more cortisol, and that does damage to your organ systems. So you don't want to do that. But also, controlling your blood glucose levels causes damage to your vascular system. So you want to control your blood glucose levels and control your cortisol levels. That's what ashwagandha does. When you do that, your immune system is going to improve and your cardiovascular system. Lignans will improve your immune system and your endocrine system, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. And when you do that, you're boosting up that immune system. You're also helping with your cardiovascular system. And by bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, you're helping brain function because you're reducing the stressors on the neuron. Turmeric soaks up free radicals because it's an antioxidant, but it'll also bring down inflammation. It brings down pro-inflammatory cytokines. This is really important. By bringing down inflammation, you don't have plaque buildup. By bringing down inflammation, you're helping your immune system. By bringing down inflammation, you're helping the health of your neurons. So stack these together: turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to boost up the immune system, help with your cardiovascular system, and help with your brain function. Super important. And lastly, omega-3, super important to take. It brings down inflammation, systemic inflammation, brings it down, helps you to control your lipid profile. So you're bringing down LDL levels and increasing your HDL levels. You're reducing plaque formation, and you're reducing overclotting of your red blood cells by taking omega-3. This is really important. And when you have better cardiovascular health, you'll also have better brain health because you're getting better blood flow to the brain and micronutrients. So it's super important to take. Cardiovascular disease is rampant in the United States, and there's ways to mitigate it and to allow your cardiovascular system to heal. Please go to my store and get the omega-3. Take it every day. Improve your cardiovascular health. All right, let's listen in.
With legality, checks and balances, and normal restraints of military power, and making moves of using the military in American cities in a way we've never seen before, which is disconcerting when there really wasn't any major thankful riots or something that might actually justify or require it. So there are legitimate concerns about the way the Trump administration uses the military, but perhaps they could have consulted Congress. I think that's reasonable to consider that possibility.
What do we need to be watching for based in your expertise and opinion here? What should we be watching for in the coming hours, days, and maybe even months here?
I think that the Trump administration ideally needs to prioritize a little bit the restoration of democracy. This was one of the high notes of our invasion of Panama to get the fugitive Noriega. This sets kind of a precedent. If we try to make a deal with another dictator, which perhaps the current vice president appointed by Maduro sort of is, we could be moving in a negative direction. Still, by exerting control, we could revive the oil industry, which weakens our adversaries, Russia and Iran, and helps the American public as well, cheaper gas prices. But it undermines our legitimacy. And it has been strongly the US position since the end of World War II, and has served us incredibly well that we support democracy and freedom. And when we support democracy and freedom historically, we're at our best and we tend to be our strongest. Today, our military showed how we still have by far the best military in the world, but I think we'll do well in the long run by doing good, which is doing our best to restore democracy and freedom to Venezuela, rather than trying to cut a deal with a dictator for short-term reasons.
Taking a look at this photo here before I let you go, did want to ask what stands out to you about this photo of Maduro that was released by President Trump there on Truth Social?
Well, I think I see handcuffs, if I'm correct, because I'm looking at it from my laptop right now. I think that generally what we're seeing with this operation, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, emphasized it, and so the general is that this is a Justice Department-led operation. They had an indictment from a U.S. court. He's going to be tried in a U.S. court, Southern District of New York, as they pointed out. So that there is a legal basis. He's a criminal. He was a fugitive. Thug is a good word, even though not a technical word. Very, very good word. So it shows the power of American justice. In fact, it was a Secretary of State from a different party, Madeleine Albright, that decades ago, after the terrorist attack against our naval ship USS Cole before 9/11, said that something to the fact that the arms of American justice is very long, and this is about justice. And when we can, and do a trial, and allow the person their defense, and bring them before a court, American court, or another court that has jurisdiction, that is the greatest thing we can do to serve justice throughout the world.
All right. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and discuss all of this, to break it down. Anything that we missed, anything you want to make sure to...
All right. It's important to understand that America, the United States, is going to take over Venezuelan oil. Now, I think what's going to happen is that there's probably going to be some sharing of the profits of the oil to the Venezuelans. So it's not going to be 100% American companies. Now, the two American companies to really focus on here, Chevron and ExxonMobil. All right. It looks like that Chevron has the biggest exposure for benefit to this, but also it looks like ExxonMobil. ConocoPhillips maybe a little bit. So I think that Chevron and ExxonMobil and a little bit of ConocoPhillips. So pay attention to Chevron, pay attention to ExxonMobil, especially perhaps in maybe investor news that may be coming out shortly. There's going to be, at the end of the month, earnings announcements. They're probably going to be talking about maybe something about oil from Venezuela, infrastructure, CapEx expenditures to build out inventory, build out the infrastructure and the processing the oil extraction, the rigs. So there's going to be some CapEx that's going to be involved. But when they're spending for CapEx, they're assuming that they're going to have oils to be able to sell into the market. All right. Now, when that happens, then that means that those companies are hopefully, if the oil is at a decent price, above $60 a barrel, then they're going to be pretty profitable. But they have to make enough money to be able to offset the costs for the infrastructure expenditure. So they're going to come in and they're going to be spending money, but they're going to be offsetting some of those revenues with those CapEx, and then and hopefully they net. So this is going to be over a longer period of time. It's not going to be overnight. And so to take a look at this, there's going to be a short-term play and there's going to be a long-term play here. There's going to be American companies coming in to actually build the infrastructure with the understanding that they are going to have oil to sell in the market. They've spent money on CapEx to rebuild the infrastructure, and some sort of licensing agreement or some sort of profit sharing shared with the Venezuelans. That's how I think it's going to play out here. Right? But we're going to have to pay attention to the news and how that's all going to be. But I think American companies, Chevron and ExxonMobil, maybe even ConocoPhillips, is going to be coming. They're going to be coming in. They are going to be coming in to build up the infrastructure and to be able to sell oil into the market. Now, the question is I think Venezuela is part of OPEC Plus. All right, so yeah, so Venezuela is part of OPEC. So that, because it's kind of like a cartel, there's going to be probably maybe Saudi Arabia involved in this. All right. Now, Saudi Arabia wanted to put more oil into the market, and we've been talking about this for the last year, because of OPEC nations and OPEC Plus nations producing more than what there was allotted quota. And so Saudi Arabia was getting upset. So Saudi Arabia said, well, they're just flood the market with oil and drop the price and affect the OPEC Plus nations. I think Venezuela was one of them that was trying to be affected. So there's probably something to do with Saudi Aramco involved in this. So pay attention. Saudi Aramco, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and maybe ConocoPhillips. All right. But these companies are going to be coming in, doing CapEx. They're going to want to make up their money, and they're going to make up their money by selling the Venezuelan oil. There'll probably be some sort of profit sharing or some sort of lease agreement with these companies, with the Venezuelans, where they get profit from the oil. Now, because Venezuelan oil is not part of WTI, but is part of Brent crude, there's two types of markets for oil: Brent oil futures and WTI futures. Okay, so the Brent will, because there's going to be more oil in the market eventually, Brent is going to go down, assuming other nations don't reduce their production. So there's going to be more supply coming online. But also, as the supply goes up, the price will start to drop, and even though it's not WTI market, it will affect the WTI price, and therefore WTI will be suppressed. So in the short run, if there's more oil on the market, then oil price will drop. But there's also infrastructure investment, so they may be shutting down some of the production to improve the infrastructure. So in the short run, the Venezuelan oil may not be there. Maybe Venezuelan oil for a little bit as the infrastructure is declining. They figure out who's going to be the players to come in to start building. They start retrofitting the production. Some fields may be turned off. So oil production from the region during that build-out phase may actually be reduced. So oil coming out of Venezuela may be actually suppressed as the infrastructure is being rebuilt. That will stabilize Brent crude and stabilize WTI. There's a lot of inventory right now. So knee-jerk reaction to the markets. Venezuelan oil is going to be in the hands of the United States. Maybe part of it is going to be in the hands of Saudi Aramco. Who knows? Who knows? And then the knee-jerk reaction is maybe oil futures will go down. Then they're going to realize that CapEx, once the earnings announcements come in at the end of the month and the beginning of next month, you start hearing that they're going to be going in and actually doing CapEx in Venezuela, then they're going to have to shut down some of the production, rebuild the infrastructure. Oil won't be flowing as freely from Venezuela, and then the oil price, especially with Brent, is going to start to go up, and WTI will follow. All right. So I think that the knee-jerk reaction here is that oil futures will go down, but it will go back up to a steady level of about $56, $57 a barrel for WTI, and about $60 a barrel or $59 a barrel for Brent. And then all of a sudden you have this build out of the infrastructure, which is going to take months. It's not going to take, or in some cases, it may take more than a year for a full build out. But there's going to be a suppression of oil from Venezuela as the inventories are being burnt down, as the inventories are sold off, because there's a lot of crude oil out there right now. And then as that inventory is managed better, then the numbers will start to improve, go about 65. See, I think that it'll go about to 65, maybe $68 a barrel. And then as Venezuelan oil starts to come online after the rebuild of their infrastructure, then Brent crude will start going back down from 65 down to maybe 60, right? The market starts to absorb it. All the producers get to understand what their production number should be based on the demand. And then it'll take a little while, and then it'll come back up into the 60 handle, maybe mid to high 60 handle. But that's going to take probably more than a year to do. So the knee-jerk reaction, futures selling off, comes back up to the mid 50, 55, 56. When I say sell off, I think $2 a barrel is probably fair for this knee-jerk reaction. And then as the infrastructure is being built out, production from Venezuela is going to be less, but there's a lot of inventory out there that has to be sold off. And then once that is sold off and that infrastructure is built out and Venezuela comes back online, then this will kind of stabilize. It'll be stabilizing. Now the wild card is what happens with Iran. If the United States hits Iran, or there's some sort of conflict between Israel and Iran that starts to simmer, then oil will start to tick back up a little bit, even though you have a lot of oil in inventory. So we'll see what happens here. But the thesis that I originally had was that this was going to be a 4-day event, and the markets were going to spike and then come back down. That didn't happen because the operation was so successful and so quick. But there's this longer effect on oil, where oil coming out of Venezuela is not as efficient because of the infrastructure. And as time comes, so the knee jerk is there's going to be more oil on the market. But American companies, and maybe Saudi Aramco will come in, rebuild the infrastructure, but that will have that production of oil per day will have to go down while they're rebuilding the infrastructure. And then once everything is back online, then it'll come back up. So when it's offline, Brent's probably going to tick upward as they are selling off the inventory slowly, right? OPEC has probably produced too much oil in 2024, in Q4, Q3. And so they're going to have to back off a little bit to get that oil to come back up. Now, if they don't, we're probably going to see a suppressed oil price for the duration of 2026 in the 50 handle, which is going to hurt oil producers in the United States when their break even is 55 or when their break even is 60. So there's different tiers of break even based on which producers, the aging of the infrastructure, the aging of the actual field, how efficient it is to get the oil out. So some producers, their break even 60. Some producers, their break even for that field or that operation is 55. Some is 50. Some of it's 45. So it just depends. So if you have it at 55, you may have a decent amount of producers that shut off the well, waiting for the futures price to go back up. So just keep that in mind. That is, there's an average cutoff of about 60. Some people say 55, but I think it's 60. But it's like a bell-shaped probability. Some producers, their break-even is at 60, some it's at 45. All right, and so you have to pay attention to this. If it stays at 50, 55, there's going to be stress, and oil producers will shut off. If it starts to spike up because of a war in Iran or whatever, or robust economy that's needing more oil, or OPEC reduces supply, then futures will increase and more producers will be willing to actually pump the oil out. So pay attention to ConocoPhillips. They may benefit a little bit, but the two big ones I think from the United States will be Chevron and ExxonMobil. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the resveratrol. This will help to soak up free radicals, help the health of your mitochondria, boost up your ATP. Resveratrol also helps with youthful gene expression and helps you to get rid of cells that are in senescence. By taking this every day, you're actually slowing down the aging process and boosting up your energy levels. Resveratrol also works at your basal layer of your skin to help to improve the health of that basal layer. This stacks really well with C60 to improve your skin. And you take resveratrol regularly, you're actually slowing down the aging process and maintaining your youthful gene expression. Digestive enzyme complex helps to reduce the load on your pancreas. It helps to digest proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids, reduce the stress on your digestive system, and allow you to absorb your nutrients. This is really important to take if you're 40 years of age or older. If you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll benefit from this when you take your pre-workout or post-workout fueling. Taking this will allow you to digest and absorb those nutrients and recover quicker for your workout. So please take the digestive enzyme complex. It's really important. It also has bromelain, which is an enzyme that helps to break up clots. And it has the proteolytic enzymes in here to break up glycoproteins, which was super important, especially for the winter season. And this is the reason why I said during the crisis of 2020, make sure you take digestive enzyme complex because of the proteolytic enzymes, breaks up glycoproteins. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All righty. They're just replaying on all right, so let's listen into here. All right, let's listen into Jeffrey Sachs here. See if he's anti-Trump. I bet he's anti-Trump.
Time like this, we can't forget the fight for a brighter future. Welcome back. We are joined by Professor Jeffrey Sachs to discuss the U.S. attack on Venezuela and
the kidnapping of its president, Maduro. So thank you very much for coming back on the program.
Of course.
Yes,
Dramatic events.
yeah, it's quite dramatic. And this, of course, was an actual unprovoked attack, an illegal attack as well. But the capture or arrest, as the media sometimes refer to it, as the president of Venezuela, has been also quite dramatic. How are you assessing the situation, and what are the objectives of the United States here?
Well, clearly this is a blatantly illegal act, but it's one in a long line of blatantly illegal American actions. And just in the recent days, Trump has been threatening a new country every day. He bombed Nigeria last week. He said that the U.S. would intervene in Iran if the government acts against the protesters in a way that Trump doesn't like. He has invaded Venezuela. Just recently, he created a special envoy for Greenland, declaring that Greenland will be ours. So it's a threat against Europe, which of course Europe doesn't even acknowledge or recognize because it's so passive relative to the United States. We are not in a constitutional order in the United States. We are in an order led by a military state. We do not obey the U.S. Constitution. Everything is by executive decree. When a congressman dared to mention the U.S. Constitution today, Trump said, "What is he whining about? This is ridiculous." Well, this is really, at least what Trump has done is expose the fact that we're at the end of constitutional rule in the United States. What happens when there's a thuggish rule remains to be seen. But in my view, this makes the world extraordinarily dangerous. Of course, we're hardly at the end of the story about Venezuela itself.
But Maduro was wanted for narcotics, for narcotic drug running. And again, this operation wasn't just the U.S. military. It was actually law enforcement. And there was this picture of Maduro in handcuffs, military on his right and DEA on his left. This was a joint operation. Why doesn't he bring this up? Oh, Trump bad. Trump bad. And here's another problem with Congress. If he went and told them that they were going to detain Maduro, it would leak. And maybe our servicemen would be at risk. And another problem, Congress doesn't really want to actually solve the problem. Trump is trying to solve the problem. So I don't think Trump did anything wrong. If the question isn't so much is Trump doing something legal or illegally, the bigger question is why did Congress fail in its chartered responsibility? Why did they let the land in our border be porous? Why did they let the drug running happen for decades? Congress has failed. Why doesn't he bring this up? No, Trump is the bad guy. Trump's the bad guy. Yeah, Trump's the bad guy, according to Jeffrey Sachs.
They have arrested a president, but this is not the end of anything. The whole history of U.S. regime change operations, which number probably around 100 such operations since the end of World War II, is a record of bloodshed, violence, deliberate creation of instability, coups, assassinations, civil war. So we don't know what will come next.
Yeah.
But we know.
But he doesn't mention that Venezuela took American property because it socialized it. He doesn't bring that up. Venezuela stole American property, American companies' property. And not only that, yes, there has been lots of, incursions, nefarious incursions. But you know what? There's a difference with Trump compared to other presidents. Now, I'm concerned that he doesn't go all the way when it comes to protecting Taiwan. And I think he should have killed the Ayatollah when he had a chance. But there's nothing wrong with what he did. And actually, he should continue on and say, okay, this is the warning sign, Colombia. Get your shit together or something bad's going to happen. And notice how Jeffrey Sachs, he's kind of like, a little bit walking on eggshells. Maybe the logic argument isn't like holding as strong. And so he's a little weary. Trump is bad, but he knocked out a narco terrorist leader. The question is, do you really think that Maduro is a legitimate leader? When you look at the jump diffusion with the votes, that jump diffusion is a sign of manipulation of the vote. And oh, by the way, we didn't hear this, but the Wagner Group was actually inside Venezuela, protecting Maduro. Who's the Wagner Group? The Wagner Group is a militia group coming out of Russia. They don't want to bring that up, though. The Wagner Group is in Venezuela. Oh, and let's pay attention here. You have Russia and the Chinese trying to play in our backyard with South America. That's not going to go well. They should stay out of our hemisphere. Why doesn't Jeffrey Sachs say that? What's wrong with being strong? Once again, Jeffrey Sachs, weak. I mean, come on, dude. And then another thing that was really important, people were saying, SEAL Team 6. Not everything is done by the SEALs. The SEAL team is great at going in and getting out. They use Delta Force and special operations in the Army, not the Navy, but in the Army. They're designed to stay in, stabilize the economy, and stabilize governments. So this is a long-term play that is playing out here because they use special forces, Army special forces. They didn't just go in and extract like they went in to kill bin Laden with the Navy SEALs. No, this operation is about regime change and stabilization of the region and control of the oil. That's why they use Delta Force. That's why you use special forces in the Army. I'd really like to see Jeffrey Sachs say this. But he's kind of like, he doesn't feel really at ease with what he's saying because he's taken a stance that's anti-Trump, but yet what Trump just did was extraordinary. It actually solved the problem. Watching how he just kind of like doesn't feel at ease when he's talking.
Lurie, it's also interesting, though it's maybe I don't have a definitive count of it, but I've not noticed any of the mainstream media in the United States even raising a question about this.
Oh, that's
The
not
New
true.
York Times
That's not true.
is so.
That's totally not true. MSNB, MS Now, CNN, they're any opportunity they can have to say something negative about Trump, they'll do it. He's not even paying attention.
Did not one time in recent weeks say, oh, it wouldn't be a good idea to brazenly attack that country. The editorial board was completely silent as far as I could see it.
That's not true. That's totally not true. That's totally not true.
Moribund.
If you don't believe that,
it doesn't exist.
I have at least 10 videos under the show views. I have more than 10 videos that have been playing CNN and MS Now demonizing Trump in Venezuela and the potential invasion of Venezuela, the hitting of the drug boats. They were constantly talking negative about Trump and Trump's strategy on this. Constantly. What is he talking about? What is he? It's not truth. This is the point I'm making. It's like he's making up stuff. It's either because he doesn't know or he knows better and he's just saying it for clicks or for notoriety to get on these podcasts that are anti-America or anti-Trump. Have you noticed this with podcasts? It's all about anti-Trump, anti-America. You know what? Have you noticed the hat that I'm wearing? It's a Detroit Tigers hat. Detroit literally manufactured the war effort to win World War II. Okay? And Detroit and the suburbs of Detroit used to be the richest area in the world. In the world. Now, a lot of people think, oh, it's a rust bucket, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's an awful lot of rich people in Detroit. Right? But the thing here is that it takes military prowess. It takes a strong economy. And I would really like to understand Jeffrey Sachs, the economist and the political strategist now and the international affairs guru, who happened to fail shock therapy in Russia. All right. I'd really like to understand. I'd really like him to say, you know what, building the economic clusters in the United States is really important for military prowess and for us to bring down our debt to GDP ratio. What Trump did was extraordinary, taking the risks and executing and winning. What happened in Venezuela was flawless. Flawless.
In any operational sense. So I find all of this very dramatic and extremely worrisome. Though I hasten to repeat, we're not at the end of the story by any means of what will transpire in Venezuela itself. There is a government in place. There is a military. There is a mobilized part of society. There's lots of guns around. This is not a simple, smooth takeover by the United States as much as Donald Trump might believe so.
Yeah, that long list of only the threats being made over the past few weeks is quite extraordinary. And we see Trump getting increasingly unhinged, not just at the domestic, but also at the international level. But the Europeans, though, the leaders of Europe have predictably showed their obedience and offered their support, making it clear they consider Maduro illegitimate and seeking, essentially to back the American position on this. But what does this mean for Latin America? Because in the U.S. national security strategy, it outlined clearly that this was more or less America's backyard now, and it wanted other great powers out, and the U.S. should reign supreme. Is this something, a warning for what's to come in other places in Latin America as well?
Well, first, let me say a word about Europe. It's a very sad day for your country, Glenn. I think we can rename the Nobel Peace Prize as the Nobel War Prize. It was given to a person this year who called for exactly what has happened today, who called for a military strike by the United States on Venezuela. It came to pass. This is a tragedy for countries, governments, and institutions that once upon a time talked about international law. The European response has been pathetic. Absolutely. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Of course, every leader in Europe seems to cower to the US, to be terrified. The strongest statements were, we hope that this will return to stability soon, not any kind of shock of a brazen attack against the international order, against the UN Charter, against peace itself. So this is the world that we're in right now. Europe varies between complete vassalage and acquiescence to the US or its own warmongering when it comes to Russia. There seems to be no diplomacy, no peace, and no attachment to multilateralism or to the UN Charter. You don't see it anywhere. When it comes to Latin America, of course, Trump has been openly saying that the United States rules the Western Hemisphere. It will dictate the terms. He has said today, basically, I don't have the direct quotation because I'm halfway around the world, but I saw the wire notice that Trump said, well, the oil is ours. This is a grab for Venezuelan oil. He said our companies will go back in and do business in Venezuela.
Think about this.
It could not be crasser or cruder.
The bottom line is that they took the property of ExxonMobil and Chevron. Okay? Let's just keep that in mind. They are a socialist nation that took over property. So they go back in and they rebuild it. They have to spend the money to fix stuff. And then they're going to pump the oil out and they're going to sell it in the market. And they're going to make some money. And Venezuela is going to have a more efficient oil industry and take those profits through, I don't know if it's going to be through profit sharing or through some sort of lease agreement or whatever. But they will be able to take that money and make their society that is not dictatorial, but an open, free market democracy. What's wrong with that? Venezuela wasn't a democracy. And just keep in mind what they did to American businesses. They took their property. So it's about time that we actually had a president that came in and said, no, you're not going to take our fucking property, and we're going to take it back, and everyone's going to benefit from this. Now, there's going to be a way to benefit, you personally benefit from this. We're going to watch the oil market and see how this emerges and how to play the short and the long of this. All right, it's going to be a little complicated. It's not going to be oil's going to go straight up and oil's not going to go straight down, and there's going to be some undulations, and there's going to be a short term and a long term part to this. And I'm going to walk you through it and how I'm going to play it. Right now, my exposure is long natural gas, long oil. All right, but markets are closed right now because it's the weekend, and we're going to have to take a look at what happens in Asia and in Europe on Sunday. And when we do, we're going to pay attention and do a rebalance on figuring out how we're going to hedge this. Now, I suspect that we're going to see some suppression in Brent crude. If that happens, then we're going to have to start positioning ourselves and shorting some of the energy futures. Now, if you don't want to do it, fine, but you can at least watch on how I'm doing this. But the thing here is that you will be able to benefit if you pay attention to me on what just happened. You can make money on what just happened. All right? Instead of these ding dongs from Ivy League schools like Columbia, all right, saying, oh, Trump is bad and Trump did this and he shouldn't have done it. Why hasn't he stated that Maduro represents a regime that was fleecing his own citizens and his country took American property when they moved towards a socialism / dictatorship? What? Why can't he say this? Because Professor Jeffrey Sachs always has Orange Man bad. And then now Professor Glenn Dyson, he's taken the stance, evil empire of America. Evil empire of America. But it was okay to take from American companies their property, because that's what Venezuela did. And are we supposed to let Russia and China play in our backyard? You think that's gonna bode well for building the Golden Dome? We're gonna need South America for the Golden Dome, especially with hypersonic missiles coming from Russia or China. Hello, Jeffrey. I know you're stupid, but I didn't know you're that stupid.
We've been there before in this kind of world. We have had a world of sheer imperialism that it was not in any way tempered or bound by international law, and it led to 2 world wars and unconscionable, unimaginable loss of life. So we've been in this kind of situation before. We've never been in this kind of lawlessness in the nuclear age, however. And I think that this is just extraordinarily worrisome to have an unhinged, undisciplined.
Can my dad go from XL to M with walking by Halloween?
Regular walking? Undisciplined, crude bully, absolutely lawless, absolutely disrespectful of any norms as president of the United States, and to have no counterweight whatsoever in Europe, not a voice for decency or international law. And for the rest of the world, well, I suppose that Russia and China are watching. They have said this is obviously a crass violation. They're not going to intervene in the Western Hemisphere. But what has happened is simply another step of completely dismantling of the institutions and lessons that we once thought we had learned from World War I and World War II and had installed, however fragilely, in the United Nations system and in international law. It barely exists. The UN is in the same situation today as the League of Nations was in its defunct period in the late 1930s and early 1940s. It essentially is useless right now. And I'm sorry to say it because I've been working for and with the UN for 25 years, but the US has disowned it, is trying deliberately to destroy it. And while one hoped that the rest of the world would rally to its defense, we see that Europe is silent And our lights went out. I'm in the Himalayas right now, and so, but I don't see what is needed right now, which is the rest of the world rallying to the cause that this can't stand in this way. Maybe in the first hours, one shouldn't expect this, and maybe more will come. But it's a very, very alarming period. The US is deliberately out to rip up any semblance or shred of international law. I don't know how Europe will feel when the United States invades Greenland, but don't be surprised when it happens. Trump has announced it. He has announced it again and again, and it's very, very likely to happen. One day, Trump will say we have a national emergency, and Greenland will be occupied. And then probably Europe will say, oh, thank you, US. It could have been worse. This is how things are right now. Principles, who needs them?
You mentioned the Norwegians gave the Peace Prize to Machado, and I already see that Fox News has announced that she is the logical successor now after Maduro's fall. This is how they frame it. But of course, all of this is this was to a large extent the purpose, I think, of giving the prize, is to give the legitimacy for the invasion, given that she has been a supporter of it. But it also, of course, was complemented by other justifications. We heard about narco-terrorism. We're told that Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, Russia, China, all of these actors are operating in Venezuela, whatever that might mean, which makes it also legitimate. And of course, Trump said that this is our oil, and we want it back. So with all of this, it bears different justifications. None of them are very convincing. And in terms of trying to put in Machado, though, as you suggested, it doesn't seem as if the game isn't over yet. The idea that they can just kidnap Maduro and then Washington can elect the new leader, it doesn't seem to work this way. But how likely do you see the US being able to essentially break the Venezuelan government now that the president has been taken?
Well, let me say a few things. First, all of the various explanations that have been given are blah, 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 meaning that they are whatever joke or improvisation the United States wants to use for the moment. The US has been trying to overthrow the government of Venezuela for 23 years. They tried a coup against.
Hi, everybody. Next year, we'll open the doors of the Obama Presidential Center on the south side of Chicago. It's the next step in the mission Michelle and I started when we launched the Obama Foundation.
They tried a coup against the predecessor of Maduro, Hugo Chavez. They have announced that the US is the enemy, that Venezuela is the enemy of the United States, to put it more clearly, because this has been a left-wing regime that believes that Venezuela's resources belong to Venezuela, and that Venezuela does not have to follow the US dictates on who controls the oil and who receives the rents and so on. And so this is a long story, and it's very important to understand. In 2017, in Trump's first year of office, he said to a dinner table of Latin American leaders, why don't I just invade Venezuela? Two of the leaders talked him down from that. I heard from two presidents that were there independently about this dinner. That idea of Trump of invading Venezuela is 8 years in the making. The lead cheerleader of invading Venezuela was Senator Marco Rubio, and now Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And there were celebrations in Florida today of Venezuelan expats and others celebrating the U.S. action. What does this mean? This is partly U.S. politics because Florida is a swing state, but it means it's been a long-term project. Whatever is said is just blah, blah, blah. This is a concerted, long-term attempt to bring down the government of Venezuela. I think people would do well to understand how the U.S. foreign policy operates. It operates on a long-term basis and tells whatever lies or stories or narratives it wants to tell at any given moment to keep the long-term narrative. In the case of Ukraine, it was a 30-year project to bring Ukraine into the American military orbit. This goes back to the early 1990s. In the case of Venezuela, it's been a more than 20-year effort. In the case of Syria, where Bashar al-Assad was brought down last year, that was an effort of 13 years by the CIA and the US deep state. These are projects, and trying to overthrow Venezuela, which just happens to have the world's largest reserves of oil in the whole world, larger than Saudi Arabia, though more expensive to produce because it's heavy oil, but still the world's largest reserves. Well, this is a project of the United States. Trump is unusually thuggish. The collapse of the American constitutional order is very far advanced. I would say, if you think about Roman history going from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire, which is usually dated to 27 BC with Augustus becoming the princeps, I would say we're somewhere into the reign of Tiberius now. In other words, the US stopped being a constitutional order 10, 20, 30 years ago, but we have the trappings of the Senate the same way that the Romans kept the trappings of the Senate. We don't have a constitutional order. We have a president enriching himself and his friends. Nobody says a word. We have a president that rules by executive decree. No one says a word. We have a president going to war against Iran or complicity in Gaza or attacking Venezuela or bombing Nigeria. Nobody says a word. We're into a post-constitutional order in the United States. So this is really our situation. It's quite dramatic. The world should not sit by if it takes any lessons from history. This is an extraordinarily dangerous period. The reason we created international law, the International Court of Justice, was not for the US to sanction it and threaten it and bludgeon it. It was to avoid global
dangerous rhetoric, violence, and terror attacks. Jews are being targeted, but UJA is here, securing 32
global annihilation in a third world war, but that one in the nuclear age. We're getting closer to that every moment when we rip up.
No, to give the Peace Prize to Machado, it made some sense because for the past 30 years we've been saying that peace depends on democracy, and democracy is delivered by military force. So essentially war is peace. This is kind of the logic for the past 30 years, but you see now in the media some repetition of this. That is, all the media outlets, they don't discuss the legality of what the United States has done, but they refer to Maduro as a dictator and suggesting, well, now there might be freedom. So they do what they can to make this seem legitimate. And of course,
so having Iran and having Venezuela in a status quo environment is better than what just happened. I mean, come on, guys. See, it's constantly America bad and Venezuela good. All right, let me introduce a new product that I have on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Click the link in the description of this video, and it'll take you to my store. You can take a look at this new product. It's called collagen. Okay, not collagen. Collagen is this. All right, this is called collagen. Right, and what this will do is just help with the health of your joints. All right, reduce pain, bring down inflammation, and help to build up that joint and prevent further deterioration. Super important. It does work with the collagen, but collagen is a new product. All right, it's a dropper. You put it underneath your tongue and you drink filtered water. I'm going to go over a separate video on the details of how this works, but this will help to bring down inflammation, reduce pain, and also help to remodel the joint. Because if you reduce inflammation, chronic inflammation at the joint level, right, and you allow for certain receptors and gates to open up properly or function properly, you will be able to allow for nutrients to come in to help with the health of the joint and the cartilage. I'll go into details about how this works. I have a bunch of graphics on my website showing how this works. I'm going to go into detail in another video. But please go to my store, get the collagen, and this will help to improve your joint health. Okay? I also have another product called Super Strong Relief. All right? And what this is that you rub it on the area of your skin, and what this will do is reduce that pain that you may have in your muscles or in your joints. All right, so this will help with the relief of it, and immediate relief. All right, while the collagen is working internally to help bring down inflammation, help with the chronic pain, and also help to remodel and give nutrients to the joints and the cartilage so you are able to slowly rebuild the joint. Now, how this, and a lot of times if you have a sports injury or just getting older, so you can use these together, right? You rub this in the area for the actual relief for the pain, and then take the collagen to help slowly rebuild. Now you can stack it with the collagen that will also help with joint health. Now, by doing light resistance training in the problem area, you can slowly build up that joint and reduce that pain. All right, but you got to slowly rebuild it. Another way to do this is taking vitamin D3 and K2 and K7 molecule with the collagen and doing light resistance training, taking in calcium, doing light resistance training to remodel osteoarthritis. All right, so the most comprehensive way to do this is to take the vitamin D3, the K2, some calcium, either through drinking milk or taking a calcium supplement, taking the collagen, and taking the collagen. All right, and that is and you're doing resistance training and you're rebuilding that joint and helping the health of the bone around that joint. Because a lot of times, not only do you have joint inflammation, but that chronic inflammation may do damage to the actual bone. So you want to kind of remodel the bone and help with the joint. All right, and to have instant temporary relief, you can get the super strong relief. Right? So these two new products, very high quality. Again, everything I sell is very high quality. But you can do these separately. You can take them separately. If you just want temporary relief, get the super strong relief. All right. If you want to help to rebuild that joint and reduce that inflammation, take this every day, the collagen. You want to do a little bit of resistance training. And if you want to help rebuild the musculature and help to strengthen the bone in that area. You want to take the collagen and also take the vitamin D3 and K2 with the calcium, with the light resistance training. So you're helping to remodel the bone, build strength in that joint, and the collagen is helping to improve in reducing the inflammation in the joint area, allowing for certain gates to allow for nutrients to help rebuild the joint, and helping to shut off the pain pathway because of malfunctioning of certain receptors or certain gates. Okay, so I'm going to go over this in a much more in-depth video, but it's pretty powerful stuff. All right, so please go to my store, get the collagen to help with your joint health and to rejuvenate it, and to get the super strong relief for instant relief on soreness. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
So standing with the Venezuelan people against their president. But as we said before, Trump has also threatened now to help the people of Iran if they are, if the protesters are shot or arrested by their government. So, while legitimizing it might work across the Western world, the world is looking very different now. I'm not saying that countries like China and Russia will go to war with the United States. I don't think under any circumstances they're considering anything of the sort. But what are the wider ramifications here now? Because if you're sitting in Iran and other countries, you must be aware that all rule of law is now essentially gone, and it does feel the U.S. has gone rogue. Again, when we started speaking, went through a very solid list of all of the things the Trump administration has done over the past few weeks. So, what do you think are the wider?
Oh, so we're supposed to go to the international community and say, how are we going to handle this issue with Venezuela? And everyone's going, I don't know, we don't do anything. We just keep status quo. And then more people die from the drugs, and more people, have problems. And we end up having China and Russia in our backyard influencing South America. Guess what? We can't let that happen. There's nothing wrong with what Trump did. See, a bunch of people that just talk and no action. We've had decades of this crap. Decades of Jeffrey Sachs, literally, decades of Jeffrey Sachs with no results. None. Zero results. And then you got some new clown that's on the scene trying to use the same playbook for the last few decades. It hasn't worked. Guess what? We need a strong man that decides, you know what? We're going to take some risks. We're going to knock out the enemy. And we're just going to, guess what? Make America great again. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with the American empire? What's wrong with that? Tell me, what is wrong with that? Oh, that's not following the rules-based order of the international community, blah, 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 blah. Really? If we've been following that playbook for the last several presidents, it hasn't benefited the American citizen. It's actually destroyed our manufacturing base. And Mr. Economist, Professor Jeffrey Sachs should know better. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and be a strong man. Get the collagen. Collagen will help with your skin, your hair, your nails, help with your joint health, your musculature, and your bone density. Take it every day. This is a month's supply. Also, get the vitamin B complex. This will help to boost up your energy levels, rev up your metabolism, and protect your neurons. The B vitamins in here, the first 4 B vitamins, helps to boost up your ATP. B12 helps to protect your neurons. That's really important, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. Protecting your neurons, really important. Brain health, really important. Clarity factor gets rid of brain fog, allows you to concentrate. And you take this every day, you're going to have better neural connections, positive neuroplasticity. You'll be able to think faster and you'll have better memory. Take it every day, drink it with filtered water. Maybe Jeffrey Sachs should be taking some clarity factors so he can get rid of that brain fog, thinking that, oh, Trump is so bad. Maybe if we get rid of that brain fog, maybe Jeffrey Sachs will say, you know what? Knocking out Iran and knocking out Venezuela was a good thing.
Implications beyond, of course, the sufferings in Venezuela.
Well, the first thing I would say, by the way, is that the idea that democracy is peace is a fairy tale that was disproved 2,300 years ago and countless times since then. Athens was the democracy of its day, and it was utterly imperialistic, making war, destroying other city-states. It finally ended up in a way committing its own suicide by an extravagant adventure to conquer Syracusa, a city-state in Sicily, which then, when it failed, left it exposed to a final defeat by Sparta in 404 BC. In the 19th century, the great democracy was Britain.
This pisses me off. They strip table salt down to 2 minerals, call it healthy, and then wonder why people are inflamed. The Red Book
was Britain, certainly the most violent country of the 19th century, the country that attacked just about everybody in the world. And in the 20th century, the United States, especially in the second half of the 20th century, when the US became the global hegemon or the would-be global hegemon replacing Britain, the United States has certainly been the most violent country in the world. 100 regime change operations or so, wars of choice, perpetual war, all on whatever narrative, whatever lies, whatever story the United States wanted. And for many reasons.
He has a tenured position over at Columbia University because of the hegemonic power of the United States. Do you think he would be able to say the certain things that he's saying right now against his country in Venezuela, in Russia, in Iran? Oh. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Goodnight Formula. Goodnight Formula has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower to allow you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep so you consolidate memory, detoxify your central nervous system, and be well rested. When you take this regularly, when you have proper sleep, you age slower. Chronic sleep deprivation increases the probability of having early onset of dementia. You don't want that. That's bad. Trust me. Olive leaf extract, dual purpose, brings down inflammation and helps your cardiovascular system. It helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. That way, you're reducing plaque formation. Bringing down inflammation also helps to reduce plaque formation. And bringing down inflammation systemically is going to help with your immune system and your brain. Because by bringing down inflammation at the neuron level, you're protecting your myelin sheath. So go to my store, get the olive leaf extract, and get the Goodnight Formula. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Let's go back to Jeffrey Sachs, the one that's saying America's empire is a bad thing.
Whether it was resources or simple conquest or ideological campaigns, but it's been war. So the idea that democracy is peace is an Orwellian idea. Democracy by these leading hegemons, whether it's Athens or Britain or the United States, has meant war almost non-stop. Now, Iran is a project like Venezuela is a project, like Syria is a project. The United States has been intervening in Iran since 1953, when it toppled the first, when it toppled a democratic government of Mossadegh, which had the audacity to think that the oil under Iranian ground was actually Iranian. And when Mossadegh declared that Iranian oil was Iranian and would be controlled by Iran, MI6 and the CIA overthrew Mossadegh and installed a police state. When the police state fell in 1979, the United States armed Iraq to attack Iran, and hundreds of thousands of lives were lost. Since that time, the United States has tried to destroy Iran in multiple ways, economic sanctions.
He's missing a lot of the details. Russia was involved. We were worried about the Cold War at the time. We needed to make sure that there was enough oil for our military apparatus. Ooh, there's a lot more detail in this that he's skipping over here. Oh, it's just the MI6 and the United States, loving oil, and we have to have oil for breakfast. We were really worried about the Cold War, Jeffrey Sachs. You should know something about this because you were part of shock therapy when Russia was trying to open up its markets. And, oh, by the way, it failed. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients, and this will target multiple systems. It will help to improve your brain function, help with your musculature, help with your cardiovascular health, help boost up your energy levels, rev up your metabolism. You'll be able to control your weight, be able to control your A1C levels, your blood glucose levels. You're going to feel the effects of this within 72 hours. You're going to have a steady burn of energy. You'll have more energy and be more active and just have more vitality. And you take this regularly, what you're going to notice is you're aging slower. When you age slower, your immune system starts getting better, your endocrine system starts getting better, your brain function gets better, you're going to be able to concentrate, you sleep better. And you do a holistic approach with proper diet and exercise, drinking filtered water, staying away from processed foods, learning new things, reading and writing, staying away from doom scrolling. Guess what? Your body heals. Make sure you do some resistance training and some cardio, a 65-35 split, heavier on the resistance training. You want to build muscle. When you're building muscle, make sure you're building up muscles for your back so you have proper posture, and that has added benefits. You'll have better venous return flow to your heart, so that's going to improve your cardiovascular health. By having better back posture, you're going to have a better flow for your lymphatic system, so your immune system will improve. And your bone density for your vertebrae will be denser. You'll have the musculature to align your spine properly. Very important. When you have better back muscles, the chances of you having a bad back or pulling a muscle and all this is reduced. What are some of the common themes that people say that they have when they age? They pull their back out. They don't have energy. They're slouched over. They have bad back posture. Their immune system starts to falter. They start building up free radicals. If you pay attention to what I've been telling you, we're targeting all those problems. You follow my advice and take the supplements that I have on my store, you will slow down the aging process 100%. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I am the most comprehensive, most accurate healthcare profile that you can follow that's affordable. What I do is more effective than Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson is a billionaire tech bro spending $2 million a year trying to slow down the aging process. And if you start watching over time, he's actually damaging himself, not slowing it down. But what I'm telling you as your protocol, your health protocol. It's affordable and it's doable. You don't have to be a billionaire. You just follow my lead. You take the supplements that I just mentioned today, and guess what? You're going to slow down the aging process. You're going to have a better epigenetic profile, a younger epigenetic profile. You'll have a better cardiovascular health. And when you get older, you won't have to depend on pharmacopoeia. Do you want to be on a statin? You want to be on a beta blocker? Do you want to be on metformin? Well, then just be a typical dipshit American eating the SAD diet. But if you don't want to be dependent on that, and you want to have vitality and be the most energetic self that you can be, follow my lead. Trust me on this. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost.
Repeatedly, of course. That's why there are protests, because the economy is in a collapse. But the U.S. Is the agent of that sanctions regime. When Iran negotiated.
Instead of doing this, you could be doing this. I got this from the TikTok shop. Technically, it's a mattress vacuum, but it works insanely well on couches too. And believe it or not, this is what came out after just 4 passes. I was literally shook. It uses ultrasonic pulses, 33,000 taps per minute to shake dust mites out from deep inside your mattress. When it detects mites, the light turns red. You hold it there for a few seconds, and once it's clean, it turns blue. It also uses UV light and hot air to kill 99.
When Iran negotiated an arrangement to absolutely show that its nuclear program was curbed, Trump said no. We will crush the regime instead. This is all at the behest of the Zionist lobby in the United States and Israel in this case. So this is another project. They're probably chortling. Oh, look, we're very, very close right now. We should understand that the protests in Iran are part of the script. I'm not saying people aren't protesting. I'm saying the U.S. has gone out of its way to crush the Iranian economy and to crush the regime. And last week, Trump made all of this very, very clear. So we, I think, can expect Israeli bombing soon, or maybe U.S. and Israeli bombing soon. Or some other CIA operation. God only knows. But I was saying that for the world, this is
it needs to. What it needs to. The Iranian regime, the Ayatollah, should be destroyed. He should not exist. All right? I don't care about what your religion is or whatever. He should not be on this earth. Now, he's unhealthy, and so he's going to die, and there's going to be a new one. It's better off to take him out now and prevent another Ayatollah to rise up. And guess what? The Iranian people, they're secular. They want to have democracy. So we're helping them. In addition, with Venezuela taking over its oil, remember what I said. Short term, there's going to be the oil price is going to go down, but then it's going to come back up. All right? But as the infrastructure is rebuilt and more oil is coming online from Venezuela, there's going to be more supply, and therefore OPEC is going to have to cut their production. But as it takes a while for all these adjustments to take place, there's going to have to be a war with Iran to jack up the price for the oil producers. So instead of whining about it, why don't you position yourself so you make some money?
It's not something just to go along with. I don't think, even though, as I said, the UN really is defunct right now, it should not be allowed to die. It needs to be brought back to life. And while the US will not do that, the rest of the world, maybe the rest of the world ex-Europe.
So he basically says that the UN sucks. Nothing can get done, but we have to resurrect it. We got, Trump is out of control. The problems that we have today is because of a weak international community. All right? Look at Europe. Look at what they were doing with NATO. Americans were paying for it, and what did they do? They didn't pay their fair share of their military expenditures, and instead they moved that money into social programs for their citizens. So basically, Americans had less social benefit, but we were paying the bill for NATO, while the Europeans had more vacation time and more social programs. Do you think that's fair? I don't. Trump says it's not, and said, enough is enough. You're paying your bill. You have the international community at the UN supporting dictators, supporting South America, South Africa, and its new, version of racism. What about the international community pushing back on China? They're not. They're afraid because they were bought by the Chinese. See, the international community isn't helping. They're part of the problem. So Trump's saying, you're part of the problem. Fine. We're not going to deal with you. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Even Jeffrey Sachs is admitting it's defunct. It's inept. It's not functioning. What, we're supposed to just wait until it's functioning and then maybe we'll actually fix the world? No. America is like, follow us because we're going to lead. We're not going to ask for permission. We're not going to, negotiate. We're not going to be, playing patty cake for 10 years. We're going to lead and we're going to make it better. Now, you may not like it in the process, but it will be better in the long run because we are moving forward. If you are not with us, you're against us. Get out of the way because the bulldozer's coming. Get out of the way. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with using our hegemonic power? Oh, we can't. We got to have an international community. And the international community, what are they really aligning with? Ultraliberalism, Marxism, socialism, the erosion of property rights. Going back to the whole issue with Venezuela. Venezuela is socialistic. Guess what? They didn't follow the guidance of the Enlightenment by John Locke. They took away property rights.
Alliance, so-called, you have 85% of the world that really should not want this kind of thuggery. Of course, as an American, I don't want this kind of thuggery, but nobody asks the American people anything anymore.
The bottom line is the American people voted for a president to get stuff done. So we did say that we wanted this. Secondly, there's a big problem in the United States. God, country, and family has been eroded. You need that foundation, those pillars, God, country, and family. Most of Americans, they want to support abortion and kill fetuses. More than 65 million of them have been killed since 1970s in the United States alone. What about patriotism? In 2024, early on in like the first quarter, second quarter of 2024, was it 2024? No, 2023. You had the Palestinian flag being risen above John Harvard. That doesn't seem like it was like patriotic. What about all these times about the BLM movement where they're telling people to take a knee and disrespect the American flag and the national anthem? What? That's disrespectful to the American to the country. What about God? You got lots of people in the urban setting stealing people's property. Don't you remember the 10 Commandments? There's a problem there. There's a problem there. A lot of the people in the United States, they don't have the moral fiber. And that needs to be corrected. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. This is 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. One molecule of this is 1,000 times stronger than one molecule of vitamin C. C60, you can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and avocado oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. A higher ounce configuration is cheaper per ounce. Also, C60 will soak up free radicals. Take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach, for best absorption. If you work out, take it before your workout so you recover quicker. But bottom line is this, take a teaspoon a day every day. I've been taking this since 2016, every day. Teaspoon a day, every day. And what will happen is you're going to soak up free radicals, improve your tissues, improve the health of your cells. Your energy levels will go up, your mitochondrial health will go up, even your neurons will be healthier, and you'll have better energy levels for the neurons, healthier mitochondria, and your neurotransmitters will improve. The concentration of those neurotransmitters will improve. You'll have better neuroplasticity. You'll have positive neuroplasticity where you'll be thinking faster. You'll have better memory. In addition, you'll have a healthier microenvironment to maintain the health of those neurons. So you're reducing the stress. At the vascular level, you're soaking up free radicals. So you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL. That basically means that you're not going to have plaque formation. So it's really important to take every day. Take a teaspoon a day every day. This also helps with your basal layer to improve your skin. It stacks really well with resveratrol. They work together at the basal layer to improve your skin cells. When you start taking this, you'll start to feel the effects of this within 2 months. You'll notice that you have more energy, you're recovering quicker after a workout, your immune system is improving, your endocrine system is improving, your health is getting better. Over a longer duration, if you take it every day for a year, you will literally look younger. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And get the C60. Use discount 5 on any order. You get $5 off. All caps, discount, the number 5. You spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
Military state that we're in, that is extra constitutional.
Well, it seems that the success of the U.S. attack though on Venezuela will to a large extent depend on how quick they can do this. If they're able to topple the government and get this done by the end of the weekend, then it will be low-hanging fruit. Just we went in, we showed strength, and now we have all their oil. But if it drags on, it could be deeply problematic. Yeah. How do you see this affecting the base of Donald Trump? Because it appears that the America First people are already quite kind of split with the people essentially aligned with the ideas of Tucker Carlson.
You're watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today's topic, replacing missing teeth with dental implants. According to my first guest,
essentially aligned with the ideas of Tucker Carlson, see this as being a violation of what Trump's mandate, what they voted for.
I think you're exactly right. What will determine the verdict is what happens in the coming days and weeks and months. My guess on that, and I will underscore guess, is that nothing will go smoothly. We have a long history of regime change operations. Sometimes they succeed. This one has not even succeeded yet. This has been a decapitation of a president and his wife, not of the regime. And it's hard actually to see how the regime is brought down by this per se, but there could, it's possible that something more happens. I'm sure there are plans and ideas, but the history of these operations is that they are followed by long periods of unrest, coups, instability, insurrections, civil war. And I think that this is quite possible what will happen in Venezuela. There's a very good book that everyone who wants to understand American foreign policy should read called Covert Regime Change by Lindsay O'Rourke, who was a Ph.D. student of John Mearsheimer and wrote her dissertation on the 64 covert regime change operations that took place between 1947 and 1989. By the way, covert regime change is a little bit of an oxymoron. When the regime is changed, you know who did it. What covert means is the U.S. lies about it. So not that it's unknown who did it, but that the U.S. lies about it. So you could say 64 regime change operations in which the U.S. lied. Now, she documents what happens. Many of them failed to achieve regime change. Maybe they assassinated a leader but didn't change the regime. Many changed the regime, but of those that changed the regime, most descended into prolonged instability. There are very few cases where the U.S. political purpose was served by what happened. Even if you don't accept the U.S. political purpose as legitimate, just to ask the question, did the U.S. achieve its aims? The answer is very, very rarely. And I think in the case of Venezuela, it would be a real long shot that the U.S. achieves its aims. Even, and I don't accept the aims, but even if one accepted the aims of regime change, the idea that this will lead to a pro-U.S. democracy in which Chevron and ExxonMobil will thrive, well, that's Trump's aim, but I think it's unlikely to be realized.
So I can't help but to think that
I think Chevron's going to make some money. I think ExxonMobil is going to make some money. And you can position yourself to be able to play the volatility of the oil market in the futures or invest in those companies that earn a dividend, like Chevron and Exxon. It's not a big deal. And guess what? We just got rid of a dictator. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be apologetic. What's wrong with the hegemonic power of the United States as long as we are judicious in the use of that power? As long as that we aren't hubris with that power. But we have to clean up the backyard. And the problem is that you got to stop the supply and the demand for these drugs, because these drugs are eroding our society. These drugs that are coming in, the fentanyl, the cocaine, all of it, is just the opium wars 2.0. And it's weakening our country because we have a bunch of people in it that are addicted to these substances that are making our country less productive and less viable. We need to strengthen God, country, and family. If we don't, we lose it. And knocking out a bunch of narco terrorists, narco dictators, so what? I don't care. I don't care. You know what? Sometimes making an omelet, you have to break eggs. Oh, almost every time you make an omelet, you have to break eggs. It's not almost, it's always. Jeffrey Sachs. If you don't like how the sausage is made or how the omelet is made, don't go in the kitchen. But everybody in America is benefiting from how the sausage is made or how the omelets are made. All right? They enjoy it, but maybe they don't like seeing it in the kitchen. If you don't really enjoy America, get the fuck out. Why don't you go to Iran if you think it's so great? Why don't you go to Russia if you think it's so great? That's the end of my broadcast. Thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the great products that I have. And I also make sure you take a look at those 2 new products that I have. It's the super strong relief and the collagen. All right, not collagen, the collagen product to help with your joint health. So please go to my store, get the supplements, slow down the aging process, have more vitality, and get healthy, boost up that immune system. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.